Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Peak Performance Podcast, episode number 5. And also welcome to the month of April, one of the most epic months for sports all year long. We've got a lot going on in this month for sure.
Whole lot.
Thank you for joining us today. It's April 3rd, Thursday, 2025. Alongside with me, we've got co-host Shane Kelly. And I'm going to be honest with you, Shane. If I could right now, if there wasn't any copyright issues, I would be blasting the March Madness theme song in the background of this introduction right now, because it's one of the best songs in all of sports alongside the NFL on CBS song. Um, March Madness going on right now. We've had quite a chalky tournament so far. A lot of people dislike it. Some people like it because now we get to see four of the best teams in KenPom history. Uh, they're all four in the top 10 for KenPom history, which is just insane. And then also in the month of April, we've got, of course, the MLB season has started. The commencement has happened. Um, Obviously, we've got Shane's Dodgers 8-0 start, and then my Padres got a 7-0 start. We're feeling good about the MLB season so far.
Love seeing
And then, of
Shohei
course,
hit a
oh
little
yeah,
walk-off homer on his bobblehead
oh,
day. It was
there you
beautiful.
go. Shohei being Shohei. And then next week, we've got pretty much the Super Bowl of golf. We've got the Masters happening from April 10th to the 13th. And then, of course, we've got NBA playoffs starting up, NHL playoffs starting up, and then we finish the month off with the 2025 NFL draft. So, a lot going on right now in the world of sports. And on top of that, we've got Champions League knockout stage too. Can't forget about the beautiful game, can we?
Love Champions League.
So we've got a lot going on. And on today's episode, we're going to be focused on talking about the Final Four matchups for March Madness. And then we are also going to talk about injuries for our sports psychology topic today, which obviously injuries is one of the biggest topics when it comes to the mental game for athletes. So now bringing in my co-host Shane. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Doing good. How you doing?
Pretty good. Episode number 5 now. We're getting into a good routine. Feels like we're also getting a little better at this thing. And
It's going more smooth. Other
yeah, for
than
sure.
seizure warning for anyone watching. My camera keeps cutting out and it puts on a laser show. So
Yeah,
hopefully that doesn't happen during the recording. But if it
yeah.
does, look away.
We've had some glitches, so we just wanted to throw that warning in there. So yeah, we're going to get into it today. Obviously, talking about injuries. Injuries have just a huge impact on um, just the overall psychological, physical, just being an athlete. Um, yeah, injuries, I've had my own experience with them, and they can be a rocky road for sure. So yeah, we'll get into that. We'll talk about our own experiences and then some of the things that we've learned in class, and then we'll pretty much just transition from there into talking about March Madness, of course, which is just great.
Getting it going with the injury talk, they are inevitable. You like if you play sports, they will happen, but it doesn't mean there's not a track that you can take to make the process easier both physically and mentally to get you back to your sport both in a healthy and timely manner. Um, a lot of people try to rush the process, just feel like they need to get back on the field, and that's only going to increase your risk of re-injury. It's important to take the necessary time for the injury.
hmm Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things, obviously, that can cause injuries. Um, and also in class yesterday, we used a model. It's called the Integrated Model of Psychological Response to the Sport Injury and Rehabilitation Process. And it was written by Weiss, Bjornstall, Smith, Schaefer, Maury, 1998. It's in the Journal of Applied Sports Psychology. A great tool to look at pretty much different pre-injury factors that can cause a sport injury, and then the factors, both situational and personal factors of the athlete, and then looking at the response to the injury from the athlete. So just starting off with pre-injury factors. On this model, there's four of them listed. It's personality, history of stressors, coping resources, and interventions. I think the one that really interests me on there is personality, because when you look at personality, we talked about this a little bit in a previous episode, how there are some guys that just need to play a little bit more aggressive than others. And so, for example, a game like soccer, typically guys like the center backs and the center defensive mids are more likely to make crunching tackles, which obviously might lead to some injury, but that's the part of their personality. They have to be aggressive. They have to be willing to dominate that area of the field.
I was
And
always banged up. I always
absolutely,
had something.
but that was the sacrifice,
Yeah,
that's what you
I
needed to
wouldn't
do
change
in
how I
order to
played.
win.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that too, though, you look at maybe somebody who has the personality of being more reserved while they play. And sometimes hesitation and fear can lead to a higher chance of injury. Um, I think from my own experience, one thing that I vividly remember was we were doing a shooting drill, and pretty much it was an anti-goalie pro shooter shooting drill where you're getting crosses coming at you. There's zero defenders, and guys are hitting balls one time from like the PK in the 6 yard box. And I was being a little bit hesitant because it's hard in college. You've got these big, strong individuals, America, Spain, Italy, Germany, all over the place. They're hitting rockets at you. And I got hit all over the place throughout my career, of course, but there was a little bit of hesitation at times. And the other goalie on my team, Stefan Schmidt, who was by far the best goalie I've ever played with, he never hesitated. And when he saw me hesitate, he would really get on me for it because he knew that if you hesitate, it can really, really give you a higher chance and lead to more injury for sure.
On the flip side of the coin, though, I would look at a guy like Tyler Lockett. He does
Mhm.
such a good job avoiding contact in a sport that's as physical as football is. For those who aren't familiar, he's a wide receiver, um, currently a free agent, but has been in Seattle the bulk of his career. And there's compilations of him you could find online of catches the ball, gets out of bounds, catches the ball, he sees guys, hits the floor. If he has room, he takes it, but he's not going to take unnecessary contact as a smaller guy just because the likelihood of him breaking a tackle against a guy that has 50 pounds on him is small, but the likelihood of him getting injured because of that is really high.
Mhm.
He plays smart, and even as he's getting older, he's avoided injury. I don't remember the last major Tyler Lockett injury, at least in the last 3, 5 years.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's really important that, like you said, injuries are just inevitable, especially when you're playing sports at a really, really high level, when everybody around you is big, strong, physical, if you're playing a contact sport, but also like even with non-contact sports, you look at golf, look at what Tiger Woods has been through his life with injuries. When you get to a certain level of sport, the amount of pressure you have to put on your body in order to be successful is y- you have to be you have to push your body the most out of everybody in the world to be great at your sport. Think about that. Everybody in the world. You have to be that willing to sacrifice. And that can sometimes cause the body to collapse, unfortunately. That's just how the human body works. And so I think that when the injury happens, you have to look at some different things, personal factors with the athlete. You have to look at, their injury, the injury severity, the history. Do they have other injuries? And then also you look at their demographics, what's their age, what's their gender. Um, but then also you have to look at situational factors too. So a big thing is type of sport. Obviously, um, when you see concussions, those really come from contact sports, football, soccer. Um, and then also you got to look at the social climate, just the overall team, the coaches. It's really, really important for coaches to understand kinesiology and exercise science, making sure that your players are, going through correct warm-ups and stretching and eating the right things, getting the right amount of sleep. All those things factor in to be able to sort of prevent yourself from having a high chance of injury occurring because as we said, it's inevitable.
One thing that I think often gets neglected after the injury occurs is taking into account when in the season the injury happens. Um, I'm going to use Freddie Freeman as an example. He had a really, really bad ankle sprain at the end of last season. He didn't really allow himself to heal properly because the playoffs meant more to him. Now it worked out. We got the World Series on a lower level with less stress. He had a slip in the shower a week ago, re injured that ankle. It's nothing serious. I know if we had to win, Freddie would play. He's taken the last 3 games off. So the course of action that the athlete is going to take is directly dependent on the situation around them. How pivotal is it for the athlete to win at that time? If it's the
Hmm.
playoffs, they're gonna rush it back, most likely, which isn't the most healthy, but in a business, it's gonna happen. Where we're 8 games into 162, they're gonna give them a couple days off.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that is really, really prevalent in hockey too. Um, you look with hockey, it's unbelievable how when a team's season ends, all of a sudden half the team is having surgery
Yeah.
because guys are just playing with injuries. You look at last year, um, Stanley Cup, Matthew Tkachuk, Florida Panthers, he had to have surgery right after he won the cup. Um, Jack Eichel, right after the playoffs, he's got to have surgery. It's crazy that these athletes are literally willing to do whatever it takes. And the idea of success for them is so powerful, it overcomes the pain. It just does. And, they're able to use their adrenaline, obviously, to their advantage. And, it's awesome to see. I think that injuries can really bring out the best in athletes. Um, just because you see a lot of comeback stories for sure. You look at when Tiger won the Masters. I mean, Nobody ever thought he was going to be successful with all the injuries he had. And then he
He came
came back
back.
and he won. You look at Freddie Freeman last year, what a story that is. Dude can barely even walk out there, and he's hitting monster home runs that are just stealing a Hall of Fame legacy for sure.
He
It's just
nobody
incredible.
nobody deserved that more than Freddie. I mean, he almost lost
Hmm.
his youngest son.
Hmm.
He battled injury the entire time. It felt
Hmm.
like the entire season was a continuous snowball effect, getting worse and worse for him. So to
Hmm.
see him explode and reach the top, it that's what sports are
Hmm.
about.
Hmm. And I do want to say this too. We love Freddie Freeman. We love his, just the way he is, his character on and off the field. Freddie, I'm gonna t I know he's not listening to this,
Hop
but
on the podcast,
please,
Freddie.
please, Freddie, be careful in the shower, okay? We need you out there on the baseball field. We want to see you play,
He'll be
okay?
back.
Yeah.
Continuing with the injury discussion, part of class yesterday, we had to listen to a little 10-15 minute segment of a podcast called The Injured Athletes Club by Dr. Carey. Don't have her last name pulled up, but she's doing phenomenal work when it comes to dealing with injured athletes and helping them through the process from a psychological standpoint. And she mentioned something about what she calls the 3 R's of rehabilitation. And they kind of work as stages. The first one is regroup. You need to regroup and kind of step away. Realize that what your team is doing is not the most important thing to you right now. You have to regroup within yourself. Next, you have to reset. You have to reset your goals, reset your self-perception, reset the thought of what you were able to do at that time. And only once that's done, you're ready to recommit. And that is transitioning from commitment towards your sport, getting better at soccer, getting better at football, getting better at hockey, to committing to your body. It's I'm training to make my legs stronger again. I'm coming back from injury. She also mentioned many times that for an injured athlete, rehab becomes their sport. They are no longer a soccer player for the time being. They are in recovery. And only once that recovery process is complete are you back with your sport. And I just thought that was a really easy thing to kind of remember, just the 3 R's, and I found it super helpful.
Hmm. Yeah, I like to listening to Dr. Carey a lot. She's got great perspective for sure. And I think that when you talk about, like responding to injury, I think that at times it can be more difficult um, to come back from an injury mentally than it is physically, just because when you're in the rehabilitation process, physically, all you have to do is hit your goals. You're going to be talking to your doctor, you're going to be talking to your strength coach, and they're going to have everything outlined for you about what you need to be doing in order to have a good chance to come back in a timely fashion to the point where you can perform at your best and not risk re-injury, right? Mentally, though, you got nothing, right? You don't have these set goals where you're measuring something very specific, like repetitions, and you're reaching those goals and then you're upping the weight. You don't have that mentally. So I think it can be really challenging for athletes, especially because, like you said, your sport, it goes from you're playing your sport, now you're playing recovery. Recovery is now your sport. And that change in an athlete's identity can sometimes be grueling. I mean, I went through it. When you can't play your sport, it's like your whole personality changes. And I think that with your athletic identity, that really comes to play through the way that you respond to your injury. So if you're responding in a negative way, your identity is going to be tarnished for sure. If you're looking at it as a more positive way, then you're being your true self. You're being your true own athletic identity. And so obviously with injuries, athletes can either positively respond to them or negatively respond to them. Um, I think a lot of the times with injuries, you're going to have both positive and negative feelings. Um, and then if we go back over to the integrated model of psychological response to the sport injury and rehabilitation process, holy cow, that is a mouthful to say. But
You
hey,
gotta
I killed
shorten
it.
that. It's a little too
I
much.
It is. It is. It's really, really long. Um, but on this model, there's two different types of responses. There's behavioral responses. So this could be like adhering to your rehabilitation process. How much is the athlete actually following the process that has been handed and laid out to them? Other things for behavioral responses is like your effort and intensity. How much effort are you putting into getting back from your injury? Obviously, we talked a little bit before about the importance when you're physically coming back to be able to hit your goals that likely your strength coach and your athletic trainer are setting for you. So keep hitting those goals, but also making sure that you're not pushing your intensity too far to the point where you could get re-injured. So yeah, those are all behavioral responses. And then of course, you've got the emotional response. So things like the fear of unknown, the fear of re-injuring, um, any like tension and anger. Um, that can happen obviously with injuries. And then of course, depression is a big thing that happens with injuries. A lot of the times you're just sitting in bed, you can't even move, boredom happens. So those are all different emotional responses. And you can either be positive or negative about it. I think something that's really important for athletes when they are injured, they have to seek social support because if you just isolate yourself and curl up into a ball and not know where to go for help when you're coming back from injury, that's only going to make things worse for you, and it's really, really going to weaken your athletic identity for sure.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, a lot of the psychological issues that go alongside injury might be, in my opinion, worse than the physical pain
Mhm,
itself. Because think about it, an athlete goes from being part of a team, seeing all their friends at practice, having coaches as a
mhm,
support system, to more or less being alone. They're excluded from their group, not intentionally, but just with the reality of being injured. They may be worrying about losing their spot on their team, losing their starting spot. If they're on scholarship and they don't heal, they could lose their scholarship.
mhm,
They may be receiving pressure to come back from coaches, from teammates, and it's a lot to handle. It's adds another element to the injury that makes it worse than just, oh, I rolled my ankle. There's
mhm,
so much running through your brain, and without that support system, as you mentioned, you don't really have an outlet to help anybody.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
I,
I totally agree. I mean, the thing is too with athletes, at least from my own experience, I think that fear of re-injury is extremely common. Um, for me personally, just diving into the injuries that I had, um, my first real big injury was my freshman year. I sustained a comminuted fracture in my nose. For my kinesiology geeks out there, I'm looking at Shane right now and he's already confused.
have no idea what that
Um,
is.
did study this in a class at Fresno State, and I kind of loved learning about fractures. So a comminuted fracture is pretty much when the bone just breaks into a lot of different pieces. And so I took a knee to the face from my center back, unfortunately, and totally just gashed my nose to quite a few pieces. And the doctor said that it was pretty much like putting a puzzle back together with the amount of pieces that they had to, you know, put back together. It was just crazy. But an interesting thing about this, and this is where I'm going to get into a little bit of a funny story, that happened my freshman year. And my junior year was my next big injury. And this did not happen on the soccer field, folks. Um, I sustained an avulsion fracture in my hip. An avulsion fracture is pretty much just when the non-contact fracture. So a ligament pretty much just pulls really hard, and it pulls so hard that it pulls a bone with it. So the bone rips off. And so this for me happened
Ow.
in physics class. Um, we were doing a lab on acceleration, and there were three other guys. They were baseball players. They challenged me to a race. Obviously, didn't really warm up properly, of course. Um, and 20 yards into the dash, I was cooking them. That's an important detail to put in there. I was cooking them, but unfortunately, I felt a pop in my hip. Um, yeah, pretty much couldn't walk. I had to get a wheelchair. I felt like an old fella for sure. The gym teacher told me I likely just pulled a hip flexor or, strained my groin, but I knew something was up. Like with the amount of pain that I was in, I knew something was up. And then also, I believe this was my senior year. We played against Montreal Impact up in Montreal, and I suffered a high ankle sprain. Went down to dive for a ball, and my cleats, pretty much the studs of my cleat got stuck in the turf, and my toe pointed one way while my knee went into another direction, like totally opposite. And I felt a pop in my high ankle. So I had a high ankle sprain, pretty difficult to come back from that. But I think something that's really interesting to talk about is when we're considering fear of re-injury. I felt a lot more fear coming back from my fractured hip and my high ankle sprain rather than my broken nose because they were non-contact injuries. And I think that that's something that's really important to note. My broken nose happened because I took a knee to the face. I mean, there's nothing that I can do about that, right? And it's probably not going to happen again. And when I was going through the recovery process, I had to wear the mask, of course, when I first started to go out there. But surgery was really, really tough. Pretty much you get two stints plugged up your nose. They're about probably 2 to 3 inches. And then you have a big cast over your face. I couldn't breathe out of my nose for 2 weeks. It was miserable. And when you go into the doctor's office after 2 weeks, they take the stitches out and they rip out the stints that are in there. And I tell you what, it's the best feeling in the world.
Sounds
I mean,
painful.
being able to breathe after that was incredible. Oh, it's unlike any other experience that I had. But I wasn't really afraid to come back because I had the mask on, and then eventually it got to the point where the mask was just annoying, and I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to take it off, and it's probably not going to happen again, taking a knee to the face. However, I fractured my hip while I was doing a sprint in physics class, and then with my high ankle sprain, it just happened from a dive, and I went down awkwardly. And non-contact injuries, they're so out of your control that it's to the point where it makes them even more scary because, hey, you never know. I could be sprinting again and my hip can pop again, you know? I could be diving and all of a sudden I feel a pop in my ankle and then the recovery process starts right over again. So I think that from my own experience, that was something that I realized. Like for me, non-contact injuries mentally were much more difficult to come back from. Now, I'm not saying that this is the case with everybody. Obviously, you have people like Alex Smith who, had that terrible compound fracture where a guy landed on his leg. Like those injuries are incredibly tough to come back from. I'm just talking about my own experience. And yeah, like we said before, it's more difficult to come back mentally from injuries because you don't really have this set schedule, this set documentation, this set workout of what you need to do in order to, continue to become more healthy, and come back from the injury. You don't have that mentally. So I think it's really important to reach out for social support for sure. And that's when people like us hopefully come into play.
My injury history, I do relate a lot with what you're saying. I actually didn't have any major injuries while I was playing. Mine were all ankle sprains, or I dislocated my shoulder a lot with volleyball. But it didn't really keep me off the field. My worst injury was a non-contact injury, and it happened after I was done playing competitive sports. Um, do you think your story's bad with physics class? I might top you here. I went back to my high school and was playing in an alumni volleyball game.
Mhm.
I played in it every year, absolutely loved it. And we were in the fifth set, and I don't know if I just pushed my body too hard. To this day, I don't know what happened. I jumped with a lot of force. I felt my knee almost shift 90 degrees to the left when I jumped. And when I landed, it shifted back. Um, Tore my ACL completely, tore my meniscus entirely. And that was just jumping. I didn't land
Mhm.
awkwardly. I I felt it when I first pressed off the ground. And with a lot of my earlier injuries with soccer, like I'd cut my head open, my head was bleeding. I played later that day. I just got my head stapled, and doctor said you don't have a concussion, you could play. When it came to contact injuries, I in my head they were kind of a fluke thing, like you said with your nose. So I never viewed it as, oh, if I go back out there, this can happen again. But it's been almost 2 years since I've had my knee, since I had surgery on my knee, and I still don't fully trust it. Every time, whether I'm playing golf, I'm playing tennis, I'm running, anything that involves jumping, it's in the back of my mind. It doesn't matter if I'm doing a 6-inch box jump. It's anytime I leave the ground, that's in the back of my mind. And I think it has a lot to do with the non-contact element. I didn't do anything wrong, but I had to suffer through all the consequences like I did. So I think it's really important to take rehab seriously and slowly build back that trust with the muscle group or just body part in
Mhm.
general.
Mhm. Yeah, you got to build that trust with the body part and yourself too,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're gonna go back out there and really, you want to see results, whether you're on a team or whether you're an individual, you want to see results and you're playing at a high level. Going back to, you know, the reference from what's it called? What's the show called? The soccer show, really funny. It's on Apple. Ted
Ted
Lasso. Ted
Lasso,
Lasso. You got to be a goldfish, man.
be a
You gotta
goldfish.
have you gotta have that short memory because, the results are banking on it, you know? And I think it's really, really important that strength coaches and athletic trainers, they give their all to the kids that are injured so that they can come back and feel comfortable coming back. And then, of course, sports psychologists, they have to be able to make sure that the athletes are mentally okay to come back to the field and they're mentally, you know, doing the best that they can during the rehabilitation process and using different, psychological strategies. I think that everyone just plays an important role to get one person back to where they need to be. And, hopefully that when they come back, they can continue to, participate with effort and intensity. And that ultimately will lead to, a healthier, more strong culture within the team too. They see a guy that goes through all that rehab and then comes back out there with no fear, wants to play. That establishes an identity on the team. That establishes the culture that says, hey, I'm willing to do whatever it takes for us to get to this promised land, this goal that we all want to achieve together. I think it's all really important. Another thing too, a little thing that I forgot about. I don't know how I forgot about this. I dislocated my pinky, my left finger, freshman year, and pretty much it just looked like this. So it came up, and then the knuckle came out here, and then the rest of the finger was out here. Um, and so when that first happened, pretty scary, obviously. You take your glove off and you see your pinkies like that. It's like, holy cow. They tried to pop it back in, they couldn't. So then we went to the hospital. They popped it back in there. And ever since that happened, my pinky has popped probably a dozen times after that. Um, and fortunately now, uh, it got to the point where, like, after the second time it happened, I was just able to put it back into place by myself. But it's just crazy. Like, at any point in time, all of a sudden, your pinky might be just out of place, Your knee might shift one way that it shouldn't shift. It's incredible how one little moment just changes the entire complexity, not only your athletic career and identity, your life,
Yeah.
your personality. It has an effect on everything for sure.
And
And now just transitioning a little bit too to March Madness, in case you want to add anything more to the injury talk.
I was just about to do the same thing. I was going to say we're getting a good real life example of how athletes deal with injury, and especially in a high pressure time, are able to come back and help their teams. Each of the four teams left in March Madness have been dealing with star players and key injuries all occurring within the last month.
Mm-hmm.
You have Cooper Flag, who had a really bad ankle sprain in the ACC quarterfinal. I It's one of the reasons why I stayed away from picking Duke in all my brackets. He's looked better than ever. His ankle looks 100%. Janai Broom for Auburn is going to be interesting to see. He injured two body parts on the same play against Maryland in the Elite Eight. Not too sure exactly what they are, but it was his right elbow and his left leg.
Just to correct you too, is Michigan State. Just to correct you,
Did I
Michigan
say
State.
Maryland? I did say
Hmm.
Maryland. That's my
It's
bad.
because
Looking for Michigan State.
Maryland's right under that. So that's
Maryland's right under it.
keep
But
going though. Keep going.
we got Alex Condon, who his was against Maryland in the Sweet
Hmm.
16, sustained an ankle injury. And then Juwan Roberts for Houston. His was a while back, but it was in the Big 12 quarterfinal against Colorado, another ankle injury. So
Hmm.
each of these teams, some of their best players are dealing with injuries, and it's how quickly can they get them back onto the court, but get them back in an effective manner. You want him
Hmm.
back where he's going to stay healthy. He's going to contribute to the team, not he's unable to jump because he doesn't have an ankle Because if that's the case, bench him for somebody who can actually do the job.
Hmm.
It'll be
Yeah,
fun to see how it all plays this weekend.
yeah, and you look at these four guys too, just pivotal parts of the team. I mean, Cooper Flag, probably the best player in America, going to be the number one pick in the draft if he decides to go that route. He plays a vital role. You look at Duke, John Shire, the ability to make adjustments, to plug in new guys. They didn't have him for the ACC. They still won the ACC. Obviously, there was a little bit
Yeah.
of a blunder by North Carolina, but that's another thing we can talk about.
Lane
Still,
violation.
still, Cooper Flag, just a major role. You talk about Janai Broom. Other than Cooper Flag, he's been neck and neck with him for Player of the Year, obviously. Just has led Auburn to a historically good season this year. It's going to be interesting to see. If he's fully healthy against Florida, I think Auburn can beat them. I have Florida as my champion, so I'm not going to pick Auburn, of course. But when Janai Broom is fully healthy, that Auburn team is easily one of the best, probably in the last decade of all of college basketball. And then Jawan Roberts, who's just been the leader, it seems like forever for Houston now. Just a defensive and rebounding presence like no other. Gets injured in the Big 12 tournament. Houston, Kelvin Sampson, they find a way to make adjustments. And because of the ability to make adjustments, to be able to plug in guys, these four teams are where they are.
I mean,
That's all it is.
and you briefly mentioned this in the introduction. This might be the greatest Final Four of all time. I know a lot of people were upset about, oh, there wasn't any upsets. There wasn't any upsets. In hindsight, yes, hindsight's 2020, but there's a significant gap this year between the top teams and everybody else. For those who aren't familiar with Ken Palm, it is the holy grail basketball analytic. It is offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, takes into account who you're playing against. And it was first established in 1996. All four teams in the Final Four are top 10 all time in Ken Palm,
It's absurd.
meaning these are four of the best teams we've seen since 1996, nearly 30 years.
It's out of this world. Really is.
It's beautiful to see. Any of these teams could win it all, and I would not be surprised. I'm going to stay with Florida, but
Atta boy.
I I would love to see a Florida versus Duke national champion,
Hmm.
just because the level of play you'd see on that court would be it would be beautiful.
Yeah, and I think going back a little bit to into the injury talk, something that you brought up earlier in the podcast that is totally relatable to this is the timing of the injuries, right? This is the most important part of the season.
They're
You
not
know,
sitting.
you look at like we said before with the playoffs last year, MLB, Freddie Freeman, he's not sitting. It's the playoffs. You can't take time off. You just can't. All four of these guys battling injury, probably not 100%, but the timing of the injury is so important. These games, these teams have been working the entire season to get into these games. That's how important they are. So you got to do whatever it takes to get these guys on the floor for sure.
I mean, you saw with Janai Broom, the commentators were in shock when he left the locker room. He didn't even sit out that full game. He went back there 10 minutes, came running back onto the court, and then scored six straight for Auburn.
Hmm.
It's a guy, his entire body's destroyed. He doesn't have a left leg or a right elbow. His left side and his right side is compromised, but it doesn't matter. He will heal in a week. He wants to win now. And I cannot wait for Saturday. I think Saturday might be one of the best days of sports we have all year because I would be shocked. You know what? I'll go on record and say it's not happening. That either either of these games ends over 10-point difference.
Mhm.
I think whoever wins the games is going to win by five or less, and it's going to come down to the last 3 minutes. So if you don't really care, you're more of a neutral fan, you can not even turn on the game until there's 3 minutes left because it'll
Mhm.
be tight and you'll see an incredible finish. But for those of us who are insane and need to watch it, it'll be a beautiful 40 minutes of basketball.
Oh yeah, just really high level. You got NBA players all
Extremely.
over. Yeah,
I mean,
NBA players all over. It's
you
great.
got you got Florida getting dragged by Walter Clayton Jr. That man refuses to lose. Um, One of the best performances I've ever seen in March Madness last round. You have Cooper Flagg, who should be a senior in high school, but reclassed and is dominating. You have Janai Broom, who we've said enough on him. And then you have probably the best defensive team I've ever seen in Houston.
Hmm.
They have a couple scorers that are elite. I don't want to mention them. The way that team defends is ridiculous.
Hmm.
They held Tennessee to 15 points and a half.
Incredible, bro.
And
That's
that's
incredible.
not a bad Tennessee team.
No, it's a great Tennessee team.
15 points. And Houston had one turnover through, I think, the first 30 minutes of the game. So they
Hmm.
play defense, they don't turn the ball over, they slow it down. And it's interesting to see the four very unique styles these teams have.
Hmm.
Anyone can win it. Don't know who it'll be.
Hmm. I think the interesting thing with Houston too, as they go up against Duke, is that Duke is the young team. They're the young guns. I mean, you've got Cooper Flag, you've got Khan in there. I mean, Khan is he's been my favorite college basketball player all year. I mean, the way
I
he just the ability to dictate the pace of the game while still being extremely efficient. Khan does it better than any other player, in my opinion, in the nation.
I think a great example for him because you got the sneaky athleticism, you have the
Hmm.
high basketball IQ, the teammates to get involved. I think he's a better shooting Austin Reeves.
Hmm. I like that comparison.
They play very similar. It's max effort, but Khan's a better shooter than Austin.
Hmm.
And I think people within the last month, I'm willing to bet NBA GMs have changed their draft leaderboards. I'm willing to bet he has shot up in the last month.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure he's cusp top 10 right now. Pretty sure. So,
And if you go back a month or two ago, I don't think he's top 10.
mm-mm. And I think that's also the beauty of March too. And this happens with every college sport when your value skyrockets when the games matter the most. And so I think guys like Khan doing a fantastic job of just taking this opportunity when all eyes are on them, taking the opportunity and really grabbing it and saying, I'm going to lead my team to be successful. That's what scouts are looking for in guys, especially young guys too. Young guys need to know how to lead too.
Oh, yeah.
Now, going back though into Houston, is the old team, loads of experience. You've got LJ Cryer, who won a national championship with Baylor. Um, Jawan Roberts, who has been leading that team for a while now. He's great defensively, great rebounder. You've got the big fella Francis in there. Now, I'll say this too. Back in my intramural basketball days,
Oh,
I was
stop
a
it.
center. I was a
Oh, stop
center,
it.
undersized center. Okay. I was surrounded by guys that were better than me at basketball. Shout out to my Rhode Island intramural team. That was a fun team, man. And my role on the team, though, I had to defend and I had to rebound. And I tell you what, Francis on Houston, I love that guy. I love how he's running the court. It looks like his hands are down to his ankles, for God's sake. The length on that human is awesome. Running down the court, giving effort, defending his heart out. He played unreal against Tennessee, and he's been great throughout the whole tournament as well. So I think it's a great matchup between Duke, the young guns, and the experience that Houston brings. I'm going to stick with my bracket and go with Duke going to the final. That's what I've had it set as. I think Cooper Flag's the best player in the nation, so I think he's going to lead them to victory in that game.
I don't even know where to look. I think I'm probably gonna roll Duke over Houston, and then probably Florida over Auburn. But you could tell me I got both those wrong, and I would say you're probably right. Like
Hmm.
I have no opinion because these games will be so close,
Hmm. Yeah,
and
and I think I,
that's
I
all I
think
want.
like I think something that is interesting too is you talk about all one seeds getting to the final four. When you looked at the bracket at the start, it seemed like none of them had like an absolute gauntlet to go through. Like they all had pretty good paths to get to the final four. Um, and that's the thing, like the quality of opponents that each team has played, in my opinion, is pretty similar.
Yeah,
And sometimes, like when you play a gauntlet of teams, that can have a lot of, you know, that can cause a lot of physical and mental fatigue on a team. I think that each of these teams have played similar quality teams and have had similar paths. And it's just awesome to see four teams that are just unbelievable battling it out now for the championship. Of course, with Florida and Auburn, I do have an opinion. I'm going with the Gators. Just going to follow my bracket. Got Duke and Florida in the final. I think with, Florida and Auburn, it's a toss-up. Pretty sure the season series between them is 1-1, I believe.
pretty sure
Um,
I can confirm that real quick.
but yeah, I mean, we talked about it already. Walter Clayton is just
He's
he's really put that
insane.
team on his shoulders and he's showing his experience and the way that he has led that team is just it's outstanding to see. I also want to give a special shout out to Thomas Howe, who is, I
A
believe, an
dog.
Australian um on Florida. Let's see. Or no, I don't know why I thought he was Australian. He's from Pennsylvania. This kid is a difference maker for the Gators. You want to talk about a guy that brings culture, brings effort. This guy's rebounding all the time, can shoot the three really well. Um, Defensively, gives as much effort as he can. I love Thomas Howe. I love the Gators. I think Howe is the difference maker here. And I can see, Walter Clayton really leading this team to a national championship. I'm also going to take Florida in the national championship against Duke. Just following the bracket. Go Gators.
So I'm not sure if I'm just missing it. I'm only seeing one game this year between Florida and Auburn.
That's a possibility too, for sure.
And if
Like
that's the
that
case,
sometimes happens.
Florida beat them by 9 on the
Hmm.
road. Florida went into
Hmm.
Auburn and beat them by 9 in a game where Walter Clayton just put up a very casual 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists.
Hmm.
And Condon with a 17-point double double.
That's the thing, man. I think the size of Florida is really what is just unbelievable. They've got four bigs that they just rotate in, and all the guys can play. But yeah, I mean, I think it's been a good March Madness. Maybe not as exciting as, we don't have a lot of upsets, but to see these four teams play in the Final Four, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be cinematic for sure.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for Saturday.
Hmm. So Saturday, we've got the Final Four matchups. Tune into those: Houston against Duke. And then, of course, the SEC showdown, the SEC heavyweights, the Auburn Tigers against the Florida Gators. And then on Monday, we've got our national championship, which
We
should be a lot of
do.
fun. So that'll pretty much wrap it up for episode 5 of the podcast. I believe we will be recording next week. Not too sure about what the sports psych topic will be, but we will be talking about the commencement of the MLB season. We're going to be bringing in somebody that knows a lot about baseball for sure. And then we're also going to be talking a little bit about the Masters. I mean, the holy grail of golf, just the best tournament there is, down in Augusta. Beautiful, beautiful course. Can't wait to talk about that and watch it. It's going to
It'll be
be
fun.
outstanding. The Masters is just, with Jim Nantz on the call, there's nothing like it. And so yeah, we're gonna have those two topics for us next week. Obviously, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and we hope that you keep listening to two knuckleheads that love to talk about sports psychology within the sport world. And if you've stuck with us since the very beginning, we really, really appreciate your support. Obviously, go like and comment on this video. We want suggestions. We want to hear feedback from everybody.
As always.
So yeah, make sure you definitely comment. And yeah, it's been a great episode. Episode 5, just going over injuries and then talking about March Madness. So thank you very much for listening and peace out.
Thank you. I just wanted to give one apology for the shadows that have come in the last 20 minutes. They are
Yeah,
brutal right now.
that's
So
okay.
might have been a bit dark there for the end, but it's fine.
Hey man, adjust and adapt. That's what we
You
got to do.
just keep pushing forward.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you for listening.